It's that time of year again. Each year, Ryan and I make a two-part series where we discuss our top 50 coasters, and it is early 2026, so it's time to do it again. It's safe to say this past year was absolutely massive for us in terms of new coasters, and especially coasters we got re-rides on. And as you can expect, our top 50s have been shaken up quite a bit. And before we get into the top 50, let's go over the first 10 coasters that just missed our top 50. So for me, these coasters are as follows, from 60 to 51. Thunderhead at Dollywood, Zippin' Pippin at Bay Beach, Batman the Ride at Six Flags Great America, Racer at Kings Island, Hagrid's Magical Creatures Motorbike Adventure at Islands of Adventure, Twisted Cyclone at Six Flags Over Georgia, Boardwalk Bullet at Kima Boardwalk, Steel Eel at SeaWorld San Antonio, Siren's Curse at Cedar Point, and Powder Keg at Silver Dollar City.
And for mine, 60 will be Kumba, Steel Curtain at Kennywood, Powder Keg at Silver Dollar City, Nitro at Six Flags Great Adventure, Jersey Devil at Six Flags Great Adventure, New Edition, Big Bear Mountain at Dollywood, Montu at Busch Gardens Tampa, Thunderbird at Holiday World, New Edition, Zippin' Pippin at Bay Beach, and another New Edition, Kentucky Rumbler from Bay Beach.
Beach Bend is where it's at.
Beach Bend, okay.
Yeah. One more thing before we get into this, let's go over our coaster preferences, because that way you guys will hopefully be able to get an idea of what some of our favorite coasters are. For me, I like launches, intensity, and speed, smoothness as well. Airtime isn't my favorite part of a coaster, but I still do enjoy airtime. Keep in mind that if you do see an airtime focused coaster on my list, chances are it probably won't be ranked as high.
Airtime's my favorite element, especially ejector. I also liked a well-paced attraction and something that doesn't really lose its speed a whole lot throughout the layout. Intensity is also pretty well valued in my mind.
One more thing before we get into this list, all we ask is that you respect our opinions, even if you guys disagree, because safe to say there's going to be some controversial takes on both of our lists. So without further ado, let's get into it.
My number 50 is Grizzly at King's Dominion. Man, the retrack did wonders for this thing. It was running on square wheels before this retrack. It was pretty rough. Most notable moments are the tunnel hill, which is pretty good ejector airtime, but then when you go back around, that turn has incredible laterals, and the run of airtime at the end is really good too.
My number 50 is Raven at Holiday World. I've ridden Raven a lot over the last 10 years, and if there's anything I've learned about it, it is a very inconsistent ride experience. This past year, Raven was running amazing. Hollywood Nights, it was good, but then Labor Day, that's when it jumped back into my top 50. It was running amazing during that trip. I especially liked the second drop on the ride, which I wasn't expecting that to be the best part of the ride this year, but it was. Great pacing from start to finish, especially in the second half. It has been running a bit on the rougher side though, but it's got a great night ride. And Holiday World is actually retracking the second half of Raven this year. So with that track work, I imagine it's gonna be running pretty freaking sweet this year, and I'm excited to try it out.
My number 49 is Mystic Timbers at Kings Island. Another really good GCI, actually my second favorite GCI. We'll get to the best one later. 2024 was my last rides on it. The airtime is very good on it. Some of the rides I had on it were popping me out of my seat so violently that it was kind of scary. The only knock I have on this is its night ride is too lit up, and the laterals are not very strong on it. It could benefit from more of that, but it is a very well-paced attraction.
My number 49 is the first newcomer to my top 50, Grizzly at King's Dominion. I first rode Grizzly in 2021, and I didn't really think much of it. Got back on it 4 more times this past year, and it was running like a dream. Very smooth, one of the smoothest wind coasters I've ever ridden, actually. Great airtime, good pacing, overall a very solid ride. That being said, Grizzly is actually my 4th favorite at King's Dominion, which you'll be seeing the other 3 King's Dominion coasters in my top 50 throughout the 2-part series. But yeah, Grizzly, overall very solid wind coaster, and the night ride on it is good, albeit overrated.
My number 48 is Monster at Adventureland in Iowa. The main focus about this ride is hang time, and I think it is the best coaster for hang time because there's so many different moments. My favorite element on this is the finish loop, which you get 3 seconds of great hang time on it. The only knock I have on this coaster is that its airtime is not the strongest. Don't get me wrong, that drop is incredible with its airtime. It's one of the few coasters with a trim brake that actually helps the experience.
My number 48 is Kentucky Rumbler at Beach Bend. The first new credit I got from 2025 to make the top 50. I was not expecting this coaster to be as good as it was. Ellis actually rode this coaster earlier in the summer before we got around to it, and he said it was on par with American Thunder at Six Flags St. Louis, which is almost out of my top 100. Because of that, my expectations for Kentucky Rumbler were quite low. Needless to say, I was pleasantly surprised by this one. The airtime was solid, the pacing was great. I think it's the second best coaster in the state. Definitely get out there and ride this one if you can.
My number 47 is the most controversial coaster on on my list. It's the Runaway Mountain Coaster in Branson. It's an alpine coaster, but it does not feel like any of the other alpine coasters I've ever done. Last year during Coaster Christmas, this ride was one of the most aggressive roller coasters I've ever been on. If you hold down the handlebars at full speed the whole time, oh, you're gonna go flying. This is one of the fastest alpine coasters I think I've done, and it definitely has the strongest airtime of any alpine coaster. Unbelievable laterals. This thing was ripping down the mountain. This was so fast, and the airtime was so powerful. My legs were like going up and down like crazy. I opted out for a second ride because I was scared my Achilles was gonna tear. I don't think an alpine coaster will ever be as good as that.
My number 47 is Mystery Mine at Dollywood. The first steel coaster to make my top 50. Somehow this Gerstlauer found a spot in my top 50 once again. And I think it's only a matter of time before it drops out, which I think it's safe to say it's going to be out of the top 50 by the end of this year. Depending on who you ask, this is objectively the weakest toaster in my top 50. That or another one that we'll get to, but I love this stupid thing. Yeah, it's not that exciting in the first half, but the second half was really good. Ryan was just at Dollywood this past December. Mystery Mine was closed because they're supposedly performing behind the scenes update, which I wonder what that could entail. The thematics based on my rides in 2023 were on point, as well as the beyond vertical twisted drop in the dark. Not to mention the finale on it is truly epic with the double inversion finale. Mystery Mine, I think it's one of the most underrated rides I've been on, and it's a guilty pleasure of mine.
My number 46 is Mamba at Worlds of Fun. I've only been to this park once, even though I'm only 3.5 hours from it. The one time I did go wasn't the best experience, but my time on Mamba was probably the best time I had. This is definitely my favorite coaster in the park. First drop, it's any other Morgan Hyperdrop. The first airtime hill actually give airtime. The Helix, that was very intense, and then the track switch was very violent. You ride this ride for the finale. If that mid-course is turned off, I think there's like 7 airtime hills at the end that are just straight ejector. Apparently, it used to run so much poorer, but now it's a really good ride.
My number 46 is Montu at Busch Gardens Tampa. The gold standard of B&M Edwards in the country as far as I'm concerned. I did get to ride Alpengeist this past year, but I didn't think Alpengeist was very good, unfortunately. Montu, great layout, very smooth especially, unlike Alpengeist, which that's the biggest problem I have with Alpengeist. The thing was rough for me. I've ridden it on 3 different occasions. 2022 was kind of an off year, but 2021, especially 2024, it was running amazing. Very intense. You can't really go wrong with this one.
My number 45 is Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind at Disney. This is by far my favorite Disney coaster, and it just got added a few years ago. I don't know if it's still the most expensive roller coaster in the world, because I don't know how much Falcon's Flight cost. It has a launch, and it's very fun. Backwards launch at 60 miles an hour. Guardians franchise is like one of my favorites, and they did a good job at telling how this Celestial is trying to steal this portal and take over the world. You just go around planets and whatnot. If you're expecting airtime, there's probably like one moment of it, but it's just fun. I ran by Flock of Seagulls all 3 times I rode it, and I didn't even know the song before I wrote it. Now I can't get enough of the song. Guardians is definitely my favorite family coaster I think I have ever ridden.
My number 45 is Texas Stingray at SeaWorld San Antonio. San Antonio's best coaster is this awesome GCI wooden coaster. I rode this in 2024 as my 300th coaster, and I wasn't expecting a whole lot from it because with the newer generation of the Millennium Flyer trains from GCI, it's hard to get airtime room with those, but Texas Stingray, I didn't have that much of an issue with it, and it was really good. Very fast paced, great layout, great airtime. Overall, an underrated gem. If you can get out to San Antonio to ride this, I definitely recommend it because it might just blow your mind like it did for me.
My number 44 is Raging Bull at Six Flags Great America. I did not like this thing when I first rode it in 2019. It was very slow, didn't really have much airtime, pacing was not great. CoasterCon came around this year, and what a turnaround. First drop stayed about the same. Still good, but overrated. First airtime hill, way better than I thought it was. And then the positives coming off that turnaround were really good. The mid-course drop, holy cow. I'm pretty sure this is my favorite airtime moment on any B&M. How people describe the first drop is how I describe this drop. And then you have an ejector hill after that, and then you have ejector coming off in the turnaround, and then you kind of like float around for a bit in the twister section. The twister section isn't anything to write home about. I wrote my name on grease on it when we were doing the tour, so I also have a soft spot for it. The night rides on this thing, I think it was night 1, were incredible, and that's what put it so high on my list.
My number 44 is Prowler at Worlds of Fun. One of 2 Missouri wooden coasters that got time tracked this year. I heard the time track actually made this one work. Reverse, which Ellis wrote it. He said it wasn't quite as good with the Titan track. Since I haven't ridden it with the Titan track, I can't speak for how it is, but my rides in 2022 and 2023 were absolutely incredible. Got insane airtime, awesome night ride. I didn't have any pacing issues with it, which I know that's an issue I've heard some people talk about with it being kind of sluggish on the far end. I've never had that problem, so Prowler for me has always been this awesome Woody. Still my favorite GCI, but let's just say there is one in California that could have a chance at dethroning it this year, but we'll find out how that goes.
Number 43 is Goliath at Six Flags Over Georgia. I only got 2 rides on this in 2021. From my 2 rides I did get, though, this thing was running incredible. Flow ejector airtime on most of the hills, and the far turnaround was probably the most intense element on a B&M Hyper. The final run of airtime kicks the strength up a notch. The ride is all airtime, and I'm fine with that. Good pacing, good speed to it, and the night ride I had on it was pretty good.
You know how I said there will be 4 coasters from King's Dominion in my top 50? We got the next one here at number 43, that being Rapterra. This new for 2025 B&M Wing Coaster was one that I was really excited to ride because it was another one that I've ridden a bunch that I have way higher on my list. Obviously, Rapterra doesn't come close to that one, but I thought it held its own. Launch was pretty solid. Yeah, there was a rattle, but I didn't think it was that much of a problem. My favorite element might actually be this off-axis airtime hill, kind of towards the middle of the ride. It reminded me of the one on Orion at Kings Island, and that's one of my favorite elements on that ride. Great pacing, decent airtime on the one hill before the Raptor roll, which actually the Raptor roll was pretty cool. I know it gets a lot of hate for being a new B&M, but I'd say it's a decently underrated coaster.
My number 42 is Mako at SeaWorld Orlando. I have 30 rides lifetime on this. The majority of them have been in the day. I have had some night rides on that, and that's where this coaster shines most. First half is incredible. I love the first half of Mako. After the mid-course, it kind of dies a little for me. The airtime after that is very weak floater, and sometimes I don't even get any airtime at all on it. And then the lateral turns are kind of cool, but they're not anything special. The turn around the water is pretty cool, and then you're popping to the brakes. One thing left noting would be the soundtrack going up the lift hill, which is pretty cool to add. And it is also the smoothest B&M that I've ever ridden. One of the smoothest coasters in general I've ever ridden. That's what makes it so much better to ride, and you can just keep lapping it over and over again. The re-rideability of this ride is incredible.
My number 42 is the absolutely diabolical grayout machine known as Titan at Six Flags Over Texas. This Giovanola hypercoaster has no business being so intense. That upwards helix before the mid-course, if you're dehydrated, it will make you gray out, or in the case of my brother, potentially even blackout. Phenomenal sense of speed, which I mean, it's 85 miles an hour, so obviously it's gonna feel fast. Not exactly an airtime focused ride, and that's why I know a lot of people talk down on it, but as someone who loves intensity and speed, Titan is straight up my alley. I think it's my second favorite in the entire state for that matter, and it's crazy to think that this already massive coaster is being dwarfed by Tormenta. That's just crazy to think about. I mean, a Giga Dive right next to Titan. That's gonna be insane to look at.
41 is Top Thrill Dragster at Cedar Point. I only got 2 rides on this, once in row 2 and once in row 5. I got the row 2 ride in 2019, which sucked is I did it by myself and there was no one in front of me, so I could have taken row 1. Didn't matter because I kind of blacked out on it. This thing has one of the best launches of all time. Very intense ride. Pull up into the top hat was crazy. The lateral snap going up the top hat. The only problem is there was no airtime when I rode it. The spiral down was really cool, dropping from that high, and the speed coming down was incredible. One of the best one-trick ponies I've ever been on.
My number 41 is a coaster that I know a lot of people will not have in their top 50, but I love this thing. American Eagle at Six Flags Great America. My night rides on this during CoasterCon were absolutely ridiculous. Front row, red side, an absurd amount of room, and on the first few airtime hills, I thought I was gone. I was getting so much air, and it was stunning. Not to mention it had a great sense of speed, and it's just an absolute behemoth of a wooden coaster. Like, you don't see traditional wooden coasters built on that scale these days. It just got an ace landmark during CoasterCon, which I think it got it because it was Intamin's first big coaster. My second favorite coaster at Six Flags Great America, and also I forgot to mention the div out of the helix is insane as well.
My number 40 is Twisted Cyclone at Six Flags Over Georgia. Again, I got 2 rides on this, one at night, one in the morning, row 15 and row 16. Short ride, but what it lacks in length and makes up for in power. This thing is a powerhouse of a little coaster. Airtime is incredibly well strength. The inversions are okay. Second favorite wave turn I think I've done. Pacing's pretty good. I don't remember it a whole lot. I just know that it had a very good airtime moment after the first overbank turn.
This past August, we saw the conclusion of the farewell tour for Hollywood Rip Ride Rocket at Universal Studios Florida, that being my number 40. This coaster had some of the most underrated forces of any coaster I've ever seen. Extremely good airtime, great positives, and on top of that, you got to choose your own soundtrack to listen to, which another thing I like about coasters is onboard audio, and we'll see a good amount of those coasters higher on the list. This coaster, it was really solid, and to think that Fast and Furious Orlando Drift is coming makes you think that it'll be getting a worthy replacement. Yes, I did call it Orlando Drift. There's no point in calling it Hollywood Drift West, Hollywood Drift East. It makes no sense whatsoever, but yeah. Not too rough either, which I know that was the main complaint with it. 2022 was a little bit on the rougher side, but I didn't think it was that much of a problem in 2024. It was really good, but it was definitely outdated. It wasn't the best coaster in that park anyway, so it's not the worst loss, but still a decent loss regardless, because it's so iconic.
My number 39 is Lightning Run at Kentucky Kingdom. It's dropped a little bit since I first rode it, but still a great ride. It feels like an RMC without being an RMC. It has pretty identical restraints. Only gripe is these restraints keep coming down throughout the ride, but the forces are incredible on it. Good positives. Ejector airtime, floater airtime. You have a run of switches towards the end, which have good lateral forces to them, and then you have 3 ejector bunny hops. Very well-paced attraction. I just wish the restraints were a little bit better on it.
Number 39 is Cheetah Hunt at Busch Gardens, Tampa. This coaster thrives on being just pure fun. I've always had a great time on this, running through the savannah like a cheetah. 3 solid launches, decent inversion, great sense of speed. Amazing night ride, especially if you can catch it when the fireworks are going off. A fireworks ride on Cheetah Hunt is awesome. I know it's been a bit problematic as of late, and I heard it was down for a couple months. They just got it back open as when we're recording this, but it just went back down again. So, doing intimate things, I suppose.
My number 38 is my favorite coaster at my home park, Mr. Freeze vs. Blast. I have rode this the most amount of times out of any coaster in my top 50 by quite a large margin. I've got it when it's slow, I've got it when it's fast, I've got a rollback on it, which is incredibly rare. I've gotten stuck on it, and I've had the pleasure of lapping it on several occasions. Most notable being Daredevil Days 2025. I rode it 12 times that day, and I rode it 8 times in a row to end the night. This is the only time that I've ever thrown up after a ride. That shows you how insane it was running during that time. Inverted top hat is like one of my favorite elements of all time. Depending on where you sit, as ejector and floater on the entrance and exit of it, and then maybe some hang time on the return trip. The positives on this thing are absolutely insane, and the pacing's incredible.
I don't believe I've talked about an RMC in my top 50 yet. We're changing that with my number 38, that being Wind Chaser at Kentucky Kingdom. Formerly known as Storm Chaser, this RMC is small but powerful. Crazy strong airtime, really good pacing, decent inversions. I love the barrel roll down drop especially. It is a little bit short, but it's one of those rides where every element is good. I know it may be ranked a little bit lower on the RMC end for some people. I mean, I've heard it's a bit of an inconsistent one. Our last experience in 2024, it was running way too fast. I'm glad to have gotten some really good rides on it, and it is very similar to the next coaster on my list, which you guys probably know which one it is.
Formerly my number 1 roller coaster. Maverick at Cedar Point is my number 37 now. Wow, this thing's fallen off. 2019, it was unbelievable. Pacing was incredible. Laterals were insane. Airtime was insane. One of the best things in the world. I don't know what happened. I just didn't feel it this past year. Drop's still good. The transitions are decent. The airtime hill didn't hit as hard as it used to. It used to rip over that airtime hill. 2 inversions has always been my weakest part of the ride. They did absolutely nothing this time. Tunnel launch was incredible. The Stangle dives, first one wasn't the best. Second one was really good. The airtime hill at the end wasn't ejector like it used to be, and then the transition in the brakes wasn't the best. I don't know if it was just running slow. I mean, I didn't get a front row ride this year. The 5 rides I had in 2019 were way better than any of the rides I had this past year. It's very disappointing because it used to be my number 1 coaster at one point.
My number 37 is Twisted Timbers at King's Dominion. The best coaster at King's Dominion for a majority of this past year. This RMC hybrid was one that I had overlooked in 2021 because of a certain other coaster that still annoys us because it was closed for us, and you guys know exactly which one we're referring to. That one coaster being closed gave me a chance to really appreciate Twisted Timbers for the amazing ride experience that it is. Airtime isn't my favorite part of a coaster, as I said at the beginning of the video, but when a coaster exclusively focuses on airtime, you'd expect that to be good, and Twisted Timbers does that amazingly. The triple camelback, I mean, who does that? Only RMC, I guess. Great ejector on that. The trick track double up is violent. The cutback is solid. Barrel roll down drop like the one on Storm Chaser was fun. Twisted Timbers may not have as strong airtime like Storm Chaser did, but I like it a little more because it is a longer ride, and it's still good airtime you're getting regardless.
My number 36 is Ghost Rider at Knott's Berry Farm. I heard a lot of hype around this thing. The retract did wonders for it, but the capacity capacity was horrible. Luckily, on both my days at Knott's Berry Farm, it wasn't very busy. Ghost Rider is one of my favorite wooden coasters. It has a solid first half, not anything special, decent drop, little shallow if you ask me, decent laterals, and then you hit that drop off what used to be a mid-course, but they took the brakes out from it. That drop is very violent, and then you have a very violent airtime hill after it. The second half of this ride, every single hill was ejector airtime. The pacing on the second half, it just tears through its layout. Even the Helix has some of the best laterals of any element I've ever done. And then you have one final airtime pop into the brakes. The second half is why I have this ride so much higher than I would otherwise.
Number 36 is Airy Force 1 at Fun Spot Atlanta. A lot of people have this as a favorite RMC, but for me, it is middle of the pack, mainly because of the quad down. The quad down is one of my least favorite elements of any RMC, and actually any coaster for that matter, because it's just too much for me. It wasn't an issue on my first few rides in 2023 or my first few rides in 2024. By the second half of my time at Fun Spot Atlanta in 2024, it started to get too much. I'm like, okay, this is not an enjoyable element for me. Despite that, it's got a lot of great elements, awesome outer bank, arcade rolls, amazing. Really the whole back half of the ride with the two inversions like the arcade roll and the off-axis hill, all those are insane. This thing just flies through its layout. There's no way it's supposed to run that fast, I feel like. Despite not being my favorite RMC, I can see why people have it up there.
My number 35 is Alpengeist at Busch Gardens Williamsburg. It was my favorite invert before, but this year just solidified it. It's not even close. The first half is some of the most intense track of any coaster I've been on. So many positives, very well paced. Second half kicks it down a notch, but it's still very flowy and fun and has some great theming. I love that they put skis on the back of the trains. Rows 3 and 4, there is a G tracker on the backs of the seats that go up to 4 Gs. In 2021, when I rode this in the middle, I would follow it, and it slammed the 4 Gs multiple times in the first half of the ride. And the Cobra Roll, my favorite Cobra Roll, and it's a top 5 inversion in my book. It is so incredibly whippy. It throws you. The second half is good because it's flowy and it has the trenches right before the brake run.
Possibly the best RMC I've ridden in terms of a variety of elements is Wildcats Revenge at Hershey Park, that being my number 35. This might be a lot of people's favorite coaster, Hershey Park, and for me, it is close, but I have it at number 2 in the park. It's got great pacing, great inversions. I especially love the last inversion. The stall is solid, drops pretty good. Even got some laterals, which is not usual for an RMC. With CoasterCon being in the New England region for this year, there's a chance that the post-con event could be at Hershey Park, and if so, that would hopefully mean more rides on this awesome RMC hybrid.
The first new addition in my top 50 is number 34, Siren's Curse. This is the first tilt coaster we got in the US, and oh my god, it's so good. It's incredible. Banger soundtrack of an audio. Freaking heavy death metal, which is freaking hilarious. This might be the smoothest coaster I've ever ridden. It is so incredibly smooth. There is no hint of vibration at all. Has low ejector airtime and some moments of ejector. The 2 0G rolls it has are incredible, or hard lane rolls. Either one, they whip you from side to side. Very well paced attraction. 2,900 feet of track, but it doesn't feel like that. It feels longer than that. If Tacoma keeps this up, they might break into my favorite companies.
Have you ever been at Six Flags Great America and you hear this loud bang every minute and a half, 2 minutes? If so, you're probably hearing the launch on Max Force, that being my number 34. The best operating launch in the country as of right now. This thing was absolutely amazing to get back on this past year. Rode it twice in 2021, really enjoyed it, but it was not easy to get rides on because that line was always huge. Thankfully, I got to ride 8 more times this past year, including some night rides, and it was awesome. That launch, I was nervous for it in 2021, I was nervous again for it this past year, and yeah, it's crazy. The initial kick on it is insane. The Heartline roll, I said this was my favorite inversion when I first rode it in 2021. I can't say the same now because I rode some others that I do prefer over it, but it's still really cool to flip upside down at really high speeds. Yeah, it's short, but Max Force is another coaster that I would describe as short but sweet. Definitely the best ride in the park as far as I'm concerned.
My number 33 is Kingda Ka at Six Flags Great Adventure. I'm sad that this thing's closed because that launch, it's my favorite launch I've ever done. I don't know if it was my favorite element of all time, but it's way up there. The reason why I have this over Top Thrill Dragster is you actually get airtime over the top, and the speed hill actually has some great floater airtime to it. Getting to ride this in the front is incredible.
Number 33 is the Runaway Mountain Coaster in the Branson area. The most accurately named coaster out there as far as I'm concerned. This thing literally is a runaway freight train. Rode this for the first time in 2024, thought it was my favorite Alpine coaster. I don't know what was up with it, but this past time I rode it, something was different. It was running way faster, way more aggressive. It left me actually terrified. Not even Trimless Voyage left me terrified like like Runaway Mountain Coaster did this past November. Ryan said he had to sit out for a second one because it was too much for him. I did a second ride to see if my first ride was a fluke. While it wasn't quite as insane, it was still far more intense than my 2024 ride, and it went from borderline top 50 to solid top 50. One more thing to note, when I was talking about Mystery Mine and the other coaster that I would say would be the objectively worst one, this is the one I was referring to because I don't know how many people would have an Alpine coaster in their top 50.
My number 32 is Storm Runner at Hershey Park. This is my favorite accelerator because this has an incredible layout toward it. Third favorite launch I've ever experienced. It is incredible how quick you get up to that 72 miles an hour. My second favorite traditional top hat on any coaster. 4 seconds of straight ejector airtime. Cobra Loop is a little funky, but it rides fun. My second favorite inversion of all time is that flying snake dive. You get ejector going into it, and then you just whip through the rest of it, and then you plummet towards the ground. Then you have a few lateral snaps into the brakes. This is the most complete accelerator, and therefore it is my favorite.
Number 32 is Big Bear Mountain at Dollywood. This coaster thrives on being a smooth, fast-paced, fun ride for everybody. People say Hagrid is a family coaster. I personally don't consider it that because of the drop track. Big Bear Mountain doesn't have any elements that I would say little kids would be afraid of, so really anybody can enjoy this. Another reason why this ranks so high, this thing is a god tier soundtrack. It is so catchy. The violin playing throughout the ride, the audio getting more intense as you dive onto the waterfall, and then on the launches, it is just so fun. Not to mention this thing runs way too fast for its own good. Like, when I saw the testing footage of it, I was like, this thing is gonna be awesome. And sure enough, it is my second favorite ride at Dollywood.
31 is Wonder Woman Flight of Courage at Six Flags Magic Mountain. The difference between this and Jersey Devil was very significant. First half was exactly how the overspeed ride did on Jersey Devil. And then you hit the mid-course and it just glides right through it. So the second half is just straight ejector hills to the end. My favorite elements on this ride are the drop in the back row and the airtime run at the end.
I said Hollywood Rip Red Rocket wasn't even the best coaster at Universal Studios Florida when it closed down. That's because that title goes to its next door neighbor, Revenge of the Mummy. That being my number 31 coaster. This is not as much of a coaster as it is a coaster dark ride hybrid, but it's got a lot of good things going for it. Great theming, the fire effects, even though not all of them were working for me, they were still really cool. The coaster section itself was a little short. That's my main issue with it. I wish the coaster section was longer, and I wish the forces were stronger, but I rode it after they refurbished it. I heard the forces were stronger before then, which that's why it was down for me in 2022. Rode it 10 times in 2024, and I loved it more with each ride. It's really good to know that it'll still be getting a solid neighbor next door.
My number 30 is one of the coasters that I was actually terrified to ride. X2. The night ride I had on this in the front row solidified this as the number 2 coaster in that park. A little shaky, not too bad. The bouncing adds to the experience because it's not like a free spin. The only gripe I have about this ride is its far turnaround doesn't really do a whole lot. The one over the station. This is the ride that made me laugh hysterically when I hit the brake run after that front row night ride because I was so disoriented and the final wave and turn was just insane.
Number 30 is Storm Runner at Hershey Park. This is my favorite coaster at Hershey Park, mainly because of its hydraulic launch. Not the best launch I've done, but it still packs a punch. The inversions are fun, but those elements are an afterthought when compared to the launch. I know it's unpopular to have this ranked over Wildcat Revenge or Sky Rush, but it's a launch coaster, so what else is there to really say about it? Other than that, I would say get on this while you still can, because who knows how much longer it may have left.
My number 29 is Orion. I did not like this ride the first time I rode it. It left me wanting so much more. There is 2 elements on it, that being the overbanked wave turn that goes in instead of outward banked, and then the turnaround, which doesn't really do a whole lot except for the pull out gives some laterals. I think if that wave turn was lower, it would have been better for the speed of a Giga coaster. First drop's credible. The speed hill, very good. Trimmed camelback, also good. The gray out helix is great. And then you have the 2 airtime hills in the end, which are my favorite part of the ride. Very smooth, and I can't wait to get back on it.
Number 29 is Time Traveler at Silver Dollar City. A lot of people think this is the best coaster in the park. For me, I think it depends on how it runs. The drop out station, absolutely ridiculous. The twisted hill, if you're facing the right way, is insane. Really, any element, if you're facing the right way, is diabolical. We're definitely planning to get out there at least once this year to send off Thunderation, and we'll be getting back back on this and seeing how it runs.
My number 28 is a new entry, Twisted Timbers at King's Dominion. My expectations for this ride were top 15, didn't quite make that mark. RMC loaded with airtime, my type of ride. The only problem is the strength of some of these hills were not very close to the other ones. The speed hill after the barrel road down drop was pretty weak. Speed hill by the station was decent. Then the triple camelback was probably the most disappointing part of the ride. It was just floater hill after floater hill after floater hill, which I've heard that's supposed to be straight ejector, like hucking you out of your seat. Didn't really do that. And then the cutback was very disappointing because how much laterals you get on some other cutbacks. Then the ride gets good. The run of airtime hills was so strong sometimes that it ended up breaking my seatbelt sometimes. Their seatbelt's supposed to have a lock on it, but some of the times the lock wasn't catching, so I had the lap bar. This ride was extremely aggressive towards the end, and that's why it's up there as a middle tier RMC.
One coaster I was not expecting to move up in my list this year was my number 28, Diamondback at Kings Island. I've ridden this one every year since 2020, and it just keeps getting better. I got 7 rides on it this year, and my most recent ride on it, back row fireworks ride, oh my gosh. If you can get a fireworks ride on Diamondback, do it. It is absolutely unreal. That was easily my favorite ride experience at Kings Island, and it's just so funny that the day I got that, Airtime Thrills happened to hit 100k subs on YouTube, so that couldn't have been any more ironic. That was almost like a way of the park congratulating him on hitting this milestone. The best first drop of any B&M as far as I'm concerned, and the splashdown, you can absolutely get yourself wet if you're in the back. It is hilarious. Not quite my favorite B&M Hyper, but it's closer now than it was at the start of this year.
Guess what my number 27 is? Also Diamondback. Diamondback is, and always has been, my favorite B&M Hyper. It was my first B&M Hyper too. Shot out of the gates with the first one being the best. Holy cow, this thing has an incredible amount of airtime. Maybe the most amount of airtime of any coaster in the world.
Certainly feels that way, at least.
Endless floater airtime, and I would even call the turnaround into the splashdown a bit of ejector in the back. The helix into the mid-course brake run is pretty intense. It's pure fun, very smooth, all around a great ride. When this thing is trimless, it's even better.
For my number 27, we don't have to go very far to find that coaster. It is actually a wooden coaster in Rivertown. And I'm, of course, referring to the Beast. This coaster got some track work this year, but honestly, I thought it made the ride a little bit worse. But it's still in my top 30, so obviously I really like it. Great sense of speed, extremely long ride, amazing night ride, although I don't think it beats Diamondback fireworks rides, that's for sure. My first ride in 2024, it was running way too fast. I thought the train was going to completely fly off the tracks. The Helix, I freaking love it. It's absolutely absurd. I don't know what else to say about it. Get out there and ride for yourself if you haven't. It's a classic.
My number 26 is Copperhead Strike at Carowinds. Oh, what I would give to go back to that park. My visit was terrible. Reservation sold out, and I got 10 rides in 8 hours. But I did manage to snag 2 rides on Copperhead Strike right when the park opened. This thing is one of the most underrated coasters I've ever been on. Very well paced. It has very good positives, along with very good negatives. Hang time. Literally every force that you want is in Copperhead Strike, except for the powerful launch. That being said, the second launch has an airtime hill over it, so that makes it okay. The scene where you're in Granny's cellar is funny and just a very cool presentation of a Cedar Fair attraction.
Finally, for my number 26, and finishing off part 1 of our top 50 for the start of this year, we have Screamin' Eagle at Six Flags St. Louis. This is the coaster that got me into being an enthusiast, and it's been running good, albeit rough, the last few years. My last ride on it, which actually Brian and I, along with Will and my brother, we got the last train of the season on this coaster. It was so hype. The amount of energy on that train was unbelievable. Everyone was so loud, you couldn't even hear the ride up over the microphone dispatched in the train. That last ride on it was truly something special. It was also my personal favorite way to experience the coaster. In other words, front row, blue train, moonlit night ride. Night rides on that are insane, but even during the day, Screamin' Eagle, great layout, good sense of speed, solid airtime, although it's not the best of any woody coaster I've experienced. Yeah, it is rough, but hopefully whoever's in charge of the park will find the decency to retract this coaster, because it's almost elite, but the roughness kind of holds it back for me, but still. It's 50 years old this year, and it's still running, I'd say, about as well as you'd expect it to. But with all that being said, that is part 1 of our top 50. If you're watching this after part 2 is out, the link to that will be in the description. Stay tuned for that, and until then, we'll see you then in part 2.